Now, these next two guys we want to talk about, really interesting, both kind of surrounding one team's chance to go and win a national title next year. I should say repeat, because we were talking about some guys who are rumored around the Florida Gators program. Those two guys being Alex Condon, Boogie Fland. We'll get to Boogie Fland. Let's start with Alex Condon. Now, I personally think he should come back, just considering that I think it's still very fresh in the minds of NBA scouts and GMs about Josh, who kind of reminded me about it before we start recording, the injury history he has. I mean, he got hurt in the SEC tournament 2 years ago, really brutal injury, was able to come back, later in the year this year, or I think he even sustained an injury at one point this year. But that on top, and then to add to that, if we're being honest, he didn't have a good tournament whatsoever. He made some big plays when they really, really needed it. But if we're being honest, stats wise, not a great tournament out of Alex Condon. And I mean, again, NIL's changed everything. You come back, you're going to be making a lot of money. Todd Golden has come out and said that Alex Condon knows the number. The decision's up to him as to whether he wants to go pro or stay in school for another year, run it back with the Gator boys out in Gainesville. But I think you also have to consider, some people talk about Tommy Howe becoming kind of the All-American on that team. I definitely am in that boat, and we'll touch on that in a little bit. That's another segment we have coming up. But with him possibly playing the three, Alex kind of can come back, play the four. Ruben Chinelli would be the five. And I think, that's a really amazing front court to have right there. And I think the opportunity to show teams that you can be healthy for a full year, one, and then two, you can come back and have a really good SEC regular season the way you did last year, build off of that, and come back and have a better tournament than what you did this past year. Not saying you have to come and win a national championship just because it's so hard to go back to back. Showcase teams you can show up in March, play your way into being a late first round pick. Because there is the realm of possibility he does go in the first round this year, but I think that's kind of starting to go down more and more. But yeah, if I'm Alex Condon, I would probably come back. I forget, if Josh has any differing ideas on that. I'll throw it to you.
I actually do differ. We've mentioned this in conversation as well. Like, I like Condon, and I get it. We've had discussions about how Thomas Howe is supposed to play a three, which, if Condon comes back, it's a very tall lineup. It's a very durable lineup. I think it's one that could be really well used, especially if they go into the portal and they gain a little bit more, which there's still opportunities to do that. That said, I think Condon is more of an NBA player than he is a college player. I think it kind of showed with how he didn't really perform too well in the tournament, but he has these abilities that more or less fit the NBA. I don't know how he will compare, per se, to previous guys like him. I don't really have an exact one-to-one, but like this is more of a confident pick for me. He's more like how I'm viewing like an RJ Lewis. If he comes back, I'm not particularly surprised, I guess, but I just don't really know why he would want to, even though, yes, back-to-back is 100% in the picture and probably be sky high the second he would return. But Condon is probably, I would view Condon as a late first rounder. He's kind of in that same viewpoint as a Cedric Howard, RJ Lewis. I see a lot of these guys as like somewhere between that 20 and 40 gap, but more towards like 30 in the middle, per se. Like, if you're the first pick of the second round, that's nothing to be annoyed about. And I think I could see Condon's like being in that realm. I don't think he would start once again on really any NBA team, but I don't know. I would just go. I think it's in this scenario, he's more fit for the NBA than he would be for Florida. But like I said before, not against him coming back. Really, it would be really cool. I think it would be a really, really cool thing to see.
Yeah, those are all fair points. I definitely think Alex Condon is worth a late first round pick as it is right now. But I do think you have to consider, I think him and Thomas Howe are both in the same boat where they could play themselves into being late lottery picks next year. Just considering they're both going to be in much bigger roles next year without the likes of having to play with, Walter Clayton, Elijah Martin, Will Richard, Denzel Aberdeen. They're going to have the ball a lot more next year. Or maybe not, because the last guy we want to talk about in terms of important draft deadline decisions, he actually did already announce his return. He will be returning to college basketball, play another year. He is in the portal and will not be returning to Arkansas. That is Boogie Fland. He's probably, if we're being honest, a top 3 transfer in the portal right now. Um, in terms of guys who are officially like in the portal coming back to college. And honestly, if I think we're sticking it out in Gainesville in terms, at least for me, in terms of guys, in terms of best fit for him, I think Boogie Fland would just fit in Florida so well. You need to replace a lot in the backcourt, losing, like I just talked about, Elijah Martin, Walter Clayton Jr., and Will Richards. You got Xavier Lee. You get Tommy Howe playing the 3, so that brings you a different skill set there. But you kind of need another guy. I definitely think, and Boogie Fland would be that. I've heard rumors that Florida was willing to give Boogie Fland $7 million. I definitely think that was made up because that's just ridiculous. That there's no chance because one, that they didn't want to pay Des Claude, who we're going to talk about in a little bit. But if we're being honest, he'd probably command $2 to $3 million in NIL, and I think he's worth it. Just considering that, I definitely do think Boogie Fland is an NBA player. He's just probably one of those undersized college guards that you tend to see who plays 2 to 3 years in school and then still ends up being an NBA player, carving out a role and playing a long career. Now, if I'm him, I choose Florida. I definitely think it was the right move to go back to school, if I'm being honest, just because I feel like he's a guy who, yeah, probably would have went in the first round this year, but can definitely play himself into being a lottery pick next year if he has a really productive season. But yeah, I think Florida is the best place to go if I'm Boogie.
I mean, I can obviously see it too. Market is once again shrinking, so he kind of has to decide fast. That'd be a nice place. Not against Duke. I mean, just once again, it's any place that has a roster. Kansas, I mean, throw in all the big names while you have the chance. But if he wants to stay in the SEC, he might as well go to Florida, unless another team really has the bag that they want to throw at
I
him.
would throw. I don't know if they have enough remaining in their budget to get him, but I would throw Tennessee into the mix, just considering how
Tennessee's a reasonable one, yeah.
Tennessee, but between Jacoby Gillespie, Nate Ament, and Boogie Fland, that is a crazy, crazy backcourt wing trio to have.
Yeah, that's probably another 2 seed for Tennessee, if you were
Yeah,
to ask.
I mean, I've heard Gonzaga and Kansas are both in the mix for Boogie. I kind of like the fit at Gonzaga. I don't like the fit at Kansas just because I feel like you need to let Darren Peterson be that guy and rock out on his own. Kansas does need to do a little bit more in the portal, put some talent around Darren Peterson. I don't think you get Boogie Fland just because I think Darren Peterson and Boogie Fland are both guys who need the ball in their hands a lot. In terms of being, I mean, I think Darren Peterson's kind of a score first mentality type of guy. Boogie Fland kind of is that right now, but has a little more playmaking than Darren Peterson is coming in with, I believe. Again, I just think you let Darren Peterson rock out in Lawrence, and I think Boogie Fland stay away from Kansas. But like you mentioned, I think Duke would be a good fit if Cedric Coward doesn't come back. Tennessee, like I just said, I think could be a really dangerous trio. But if we're being honest, I think Gainesville is by far the best fit for me.
Yeah, I definitely see it. I definitely see it.
Which now I kind of want to get into this next segment here because originally I kind of thought like no way, but you have to remember the transfer portal exists. Teams are going to make moves. Guys are going to announce whether they're running it back for another year or not. You get some added talent. Florida's done a lot. I think primarily retention. Getting Tommy Howe back was big. Ruben Chiniglu running it back. They're getting Clavzar back as well to come off the bench. He's a guy who lit it up from 3 during SEC play. Kind of came out of nowhere doing that. And you add Xavier Lee, who was one of the best point guards in the portal this past offseason cycle. Now, I definitely come out and express my concerns about Xavier Lee kind of being the go-to ball handler, do-it-all kind of guy on this team, just considering he's coming out of the Ivy League. You don't know how mid-major guys play at the high major level until you actually see them play. But if they are able to get both Alex Condon back, along with being able to land Boogie Fland in the transfer portal, how legit is Florida's chances to go back to back?
I would say they have better odds of going back to back than I don't. Okay, maybe not UConn. I don't want to say that that UConn team was anything less than a open open carpet to go back to back, but they're probably on the way to being that point. Like I mean, like I said before, it's a tall starting five. It's a very well experienced team. They've all had that experience of winning a ring. I get it. There's not going to be that Walter Clayton figure to, lead and be that clutch guy. But we're seeing how you can replace most of a team. But if you keep a couple guys around, if you keep the same structure, it's kind of a weird ship of theses type of idea. But I don't know. I mean, it's more like a 1 to 5 chance. Like I'm not gonna say they're like a favorite. Like I think if we had even if we had Boogie Fland and Condon come back, I still think that they probably wouldn't be preseason number one, just given the amount of talent we're looking at right now.
Right.
But if any of them go to Florida, they're a top 5 team. I'm not denying them. I still think Kentucky's probably the best team in the SEC right now, but Florida makes it very, very close. If
Yeah.
not the head of the SEC snake, which once again, SEC is going to probably be the best conference. You're going to want to be the best team in the best conference. And if Florida can be in that scenario, a back to back is it's probably in the cards if you're going to ask me.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, I'd have a tough time disagreeing with you saying the SEC is going to repeat as being the best conference across the country. I definitely think if they both get Condon back and land Boogie Fland in the portal, I mean, they're in a really, really good spot. I very much do feel two things are very similar across this upcoming Florida team if those two things happen and what was UConn 2 years back. Just in terms of you have a guy, I mean, I kind of look at the Thomas Howe situation very similar to Donovan Clingan, where Donovan Clingan was a guy who came off the bench, kind of was there to provide a spark, some a little bit of bench scoring, make some tough plays defensively in his freshman year, and that already was enough to get him valued as being a late lottery pick to late first round pick. But he decided to run it back for one more year in school to play himself into being a lottery pick. And Thomas Howell's in the exact same situation, I think, and I honestly believe Thomas Howell will be the All American kind of go to guy, maybe not go to, but best player on this Florida program next year. Even with the likes of dynamic scores like Xavier Lee, Boogie Fland. But I just think it also reminds you kind of the ways of okay, take Steph Castle out of the equation here, but maybe you don't have the best individual isolation defenders on their own, but you have so much size that it doesn't it doesn't hurt your chances of being a good defensive team all too much. Xavier Lee has solid height, 6'4". Boogie Fland's a little bit shorter, but again, between Tommy Howe, Alex Condon, Ruben Chinilu, that's a huge lineup to have. And you're going to have a lot of rim protection. You're going to have a lot of length, and that's going to make it really difficult for teams to score on you. And again, I think they honestly do have a really, really good chance to run it back and win another natty if they can get Condon back out of the draft and land Boogie Fland in the portal. And honestly, yeah, I don't hate your take saying that on paper, this team might honestly look like they have a better chance to repeat than UConn did 2 years ago.
No, I don't want to be offensive. I still think that UConn team had it all set. But
Yeah, I mean,
Thomas Howe, you have a really strong point with the Thomas Howe connection to Dominic Clingan. I can see it.
yeah, I mean, I think Thomas Howe is really, really talented. He showed what he could do as a glue guy. Now imagine what he can do kind of as again, I don't know if number one option is the right word, just because you have so many so many scores on this team going to next year, especially if you land Boogie Fland. But with him being in a lot more of an elevated role, he's going to be shooting a lot more. He showcased he can step out, hit the three. This past year, I'm really excited to see Tommy Howe play and rock out in Gainesville.
Definitely.
Definitely on my All American watch for next year. So definitely be on the lookout for when those lists come out when we make a video about that.